Feed your future self with magic internet money.
And it's almost like, so the space evolved in a way because I was doing some consulting and advising all of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And what it ended up being was people were just paying me to tell them to not do an ICO.
Wow.
It was like they wanted me to advise their ICO or whatever. And we'd get on a call and I'd be like, you don't need to do this.
That's such fantastically
build this on
easy
Bitcoin
money.
or just do equity. Like you don't need, no one's going to buy this.
Yeah.
And the narrative actually was that for most of the last half of 2018, the first half of 2018, there were still ICOs happening. But the last half, it was like everybody started to distance themselves from wanting to run an ICO, all these companies. And now, as of the last month, I'm seeing these people again started to rekindle their ICO efforts. So it's like mind-boggling how quickly people have forgotten that these utility token ICOs have very little value in the eyes of the market when there's like a bear market. And I don't know if it's like hopium right now. I mean, we're talking it's end of March 2019. Somebody might be listening to this next year and maybe the market cap is $1 trillion of all coins, or maybe it's 50 billion, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows what it is? But we're in this weird spot now where it's like we learned all these lessons for the ICO space.
Yeah.
And everybody's forgotten them so quick. It seems, anyways. That's what the way the market's reacting. So that's why I think now we're in like a fool's rally, and I think we're at 140 billion market cap across all coins right now.
Yeah.
I feel like it's people trying to exit their illiquid bags. It's like pump and dump funds or like FOMO funds or whatever that started up in 2017. Market makers and stuff that bought these massive bags of illiquid ICOs. Couldn't sell them in 2018. Now we got a little bit of juice coming back, and they're just taking advantage of it and trying to like get out of these positions. So that's where I think we are with altcoins.
So it's funny because if we have actually bottomed already, then you're perfectly giving the disbelief that starts at the beginning of the next bear market.
I'm like,
you know this.
I've capitulated in December, so I'm like, we're going below 100 billion market cap.
Where's my disbelief?
This is a fool's rally.
Where's my disbelief? Yeah. Man, that chart is burned into my brain so much, I don't even feel like I have to show it to people anymore. I can just say, Wall Street cheat sheet, so we're in disbelief. Yeah. But there's a case for that, and I know everybody keeps saying the cycles they get longer every time they happen.
Yeah, and they shouldn't repeat exactly.
No, and I don't think they will. But like, I can't help but insert the value of permissionlessness is underrepresented, and we saw it in 2017 with people buying ICOs because of ads that were persistent across the internet that they didn't understand, and they threw money at something that they didn't understand because they didn't need anybody's permission, right? And that level of participation's going to continue in so many ways. I'm starting to wonder if the next way that it happens is through not necessarily universal basic income type stuff.
Yeah.
But
that's
definitely like universal airdrop type stuff is going to happen. And if it happens once prominently, it's going to unleash some floodgates. And people will know that,
it's like Aurora coin. Remember that one?
Yeah. Or like that. Those were prototypes.
Of those like UBI type country coins back in 2013.
Yeah. No, it was a pretty cool distribution method.
But I see what you're saying. You're talking about permissionlessness, right? And that's the thesis and the ethos of like open source. Way Bitcoin was released the first, say, like 8 years.
Yeah.
But we're in a little bit of a regulatory purgatory right now.
Yep.
And I think we should revisit this in like 6 months to a year and see what shook out with regulation, because the government in the US is still struggling with like shutdowns and trying to go build walls and like the Democrats just took over the House and like now Trump has less power and all this stuff. But like SEC and stuff was underfunded, or at least they weren't getting paid for like some of November and December.
Yeah.
So they're backlogged. And I think over the next 6 to 12 months, it's definitely going to shake out what the US regulation looks like. And if they do take that stance where they're going to support that permissionlessness, say like not kill innovation not drive innovation overseas by being too hard with the regulations, then I think altcoins and stuff can survive and still have that alpha that a lot of speculators come in to sort of get a higher alpha over Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Then you can still get a lot of that, and it will be there, but not as big as we saw in 2017. But if the regulators come clamp down and start regulating hardcore against exchanges and all the endpoints, then there will be less value and less returns in the permissionlessness ethos.
Maybe.
Type coins.
But I think, I'm wondering if you're giving too much credit to the power of the US and their ability to regulate. Because I mean, I'm pretty well convinced that empire has been on its way out for a while. And any kind of assertion of control that they try to make, especially over something that is fundamentally permissionless, is it's going to have the effects that they want for sure, but it's also going to just push things towards the workarounds so much more easily. So like so much more towards anonymous
DEXs
protocols, DEXs are, and even DEXs that are barely decentralized, like CryptoBridge, for example, is the one that I like to go to most often, because it's just a gateway to BitShares, which is just 11 or 12 nodes all over the world. But good luck shutting them all down. And like that blockchain processes so much stuff.
But the thing is, like, I see your point, and I was pretty convinced of that in 2000 and before 2018.
Yeah,
I was pretty convinced that DEXs were going to disrupt regulators the same way that Bitcoin disrupted central bankers and regulators as well. Like, they didn't want Bitcoin to exist. I was a user of eGold back in 2004. Like, cool. I was using eGold and it got shut down, and I lost my eGold. I had like $200 or something. It was nothing, but I was like excited by it, using it. I was just a young kid at the time. I was like 21 or something.
Yeah.
And, they shut it down because it got to the point where it was a bit of a threat, right?
Yeah.
It was a new type of currency. So Bitcoin, because it's decentralized, they didn't want that to exist. They wanted to shut it down, but it was too decentralized. They couldn't. So I'm like, DEXs are going to disrupt the securities regulations the same way that Bitcoin disrupted the financial regulations and the bankers will, and like the central bankers.
Yep.
But that was what I was hoping to happen. But now it's like they can stranglehold the endpoints.
Yeah, the choke points are in the off, like the loops that aren't closed.
Yeah.
And that's I've been thinking a lot about ways to like work around that personally for my own thesis, and I would talk, about that in private probably, because it's all conjectural. But they're gonna try stuff, obviously, and it's really just a matter of I tell a lot of people that regulation creates a lot of uncertainty for someone who's already in the system, who's already up from zero. And a lot of what you need to do is just preserve your store of value by not moving anything, but also not overtly acknowledging ownership until such time as, because like a lot of the time you only trigger some kind of state monitored taxable event when you transact, right?
Right.
So if you never transact, and this is, really speaking to the low time preference people here,
mm-hmm.
your value is better preserved and stored if you can wait out the regulations, or wait out until, like, for example, the SEC has a bigger problem than Bitcoin to contend with, or they just can't audit that many users, or
right.
they just can't. The revolution of choke pointing people when they try to cash out Bitcoin to USD flares up and then dies because there's a bigger problem or whatever. Like, if you hold beyond all that stuff, you basically sidestep all those issues.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, obviously, because
especially when the bubble cycle happens.
Yeah.
Going up 10, 20, 30x.
Yeah, it's super hard not to just be like, all right, screw it. I'm cashing out. And you could just, you could also play the odds. If you have enough stored, you could be like, all right, well, I'll cash out some and then just leave some completely hidden and untouched. And as long as, I've done my blockchain management and mixer stuff or whatever, Even that eventually will be cracked one day. But diversification across possible outcomes for what you see is important. And even though we're humans with finite time preference ending at our lifespans, right? We can still work within that system to maybe force some savings on our part to sort of wait out these uncertainties with regulation and with how everything, unclosed loops and everything. And maybe worst case scenario, which is kind of what I always said was the worst case scenario for myself, is like second worst case scenario, actually, because worst case scenario, everything goes to zero and it all gets shut down. But worst case scenario is it gets fully neutered and I've just saved up a bunch of money in like in a retirement account for myself, right? By not moving it around and by not speculating and not trying to sell the highs and buy the lows, by just standing pat.
Yeah. And that's the advice that like brings us back to the beginning of this conversation that I give to new people that I believe is the simplest advice.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to explain Bitcoin to somebody or tell someone about Bitcoin, it's telling them about, don't like get into this space and don't try to become a trader unless you have a full-time sort of like amount of time to spend on watching these coins and getting into these rooms and learning about it, because you're just going to get wrecked.
Yeah.
And you're going to make bad decisions because you're just going to follow your emotions.
Right.
And so I tell people when I'm evangelizing Bitcoin, I say, don't buy crypto, buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And take a small amount of your savings and your net worth and get exposure to Bitcoin. Don't look at the price for 5 years. Don't think about it for 5 years. Don't move it for 5 years. Take it off the exchange, hold it in a hard wallet.
Yep.
And just, that's retirement money. And if you can wait that long and just forget about it, there's a very good chance that Bitcoin is going to be worth a lot more than it is right now.
Yeah.
If you wait 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So I do not feel comfortable telling anybody to do the same thing with any other altcoin.
Really? I was going to ask you this question, like, just to sort of possibly try to illustrate the slippery slope.
All the gains you get from the regular average Joe just buying and holding Bitcoin for say 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that's the smartest, most prudent strategy for a new person that's not going to be following
for a new person
charts.
for sure.
If you have a job and a family and stuff and you don't want to become a crypto trader, like just don't mess with crypto.
Yeah.
Just buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, forget about it. That's where it kind of goes in with your chart. Like, sure, you may have that third layer of like moonbag speculative gains that gives you 1,000x, but the chances are super low that you're going to hit that. Unless you've got like 100 different altcoins and you've got a risk management strategy pretty well optimized. You're probably not going to hit the jackpot. So just put your money in Bitcoin.
It's the smartest thing to do. Right. Yeah. It's the smartest thing to do. And the only challenge with that is it runs against the narratives and desires of like people wanting to win big. Because if you do that, you'll be happy.
I really do think that you'll win big by doing that. And I should definitely throw in this is not investment advice disclaimer, but like I really do think like that's the way I'm thinking about it. In 5 to 10 years, I'm pretty confident, at least that's where my money is where my mouth is, Yeah. Whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
My money is where my mouth is.
Yeah, you put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
And that's where it is.
I'm pretty confident that it's a lot of people, and I even think this myself, it's either going to go to zero or it's going to be way higher.
Yeah.
It's either going to be on its way even further to global reserve currency status as, up there with gold and in the trillions of market cap in that long of a time frame. Much more of a higher chance that Bitcoin does it than any other cryptocurrency in that size of gain, of market cap gain. I'm not talking about return size gain. Like there's going to be more coins where you get a better return.
Sure.
But for the stability of Bitcoin as the winner of supply.
Right. It's the lowest risk exposure.
Lowest risk in this risky asset.
Yeah.
So it's like max 5% of your money, take it, put it in Bitcoin, and then it's either going to go to zero and then you lost 5% of your money, or it's going to like 10, 20, 100x.
And then you've changed your life.
It's changed your life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like basic advice I give to people. And I really try to emphasize to them to not And 5% is even high for a lot of people.
Oh,
but
my
it's
gosh,
like
yeah.
max 5%, you know?
Yeah,
like,
max 5%.
some number, you pick a number that's not going to change your life for the worst. And if you put that in Bitcoin, forget about it for 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
It's either going to not change your life at all.
Yep.
Like, sure, it'll hurt a little bit to lose 5% of your money. Or it's going to do what a lot of us think, and it's going to have outsized returns for every other asset and change your life.
Yeah, yeah. No, I fully can't.
But if you put it in
fault that logic.
Litecoin or some other coin, Ethereum or whatever, it could completely fail faster than Bitcoin, I think. will fail
Without
as
significantly
money.
more upside.
It may have more upside, but I think something like Ethereum won't have significantly more upside
Right.
because it's already at high market cap. Some low, like, micro cap coin, sure, might do 1,000x, you know, to get that, like...
But you face it, you don't have any of those, and hardly anybody does,
it's
right?
not,
yeah.
you know, that's like winning the lottery, that type of thing. And that's like a professional speculator. And then you have to manage your risk properly. So that's a whole nother skill set you got to learn.
Yep.
It's going to drive you nuts. So...
And the problem is that the role models out there, and I'm pointing to myself here in some ways, like they do ridiculous risk on stuff like that. And, you know, I've been burned more times than I'm successful for sure. But like, just to iterate that, like, to anybody listening to this, you know, that is the best advice. It's just to get a little bit of Bitcoin as a hedge against the existing system and hang on to it and just don't touch it. And be like, there's a way to participate that's right, which is if it comes up, just be like, oh yeah, I have some Bitcoin. And just, you know, don't even say it out loud. Just be like, when you hear about it, just be like, oh, good, I have some Bitcoin. Don't worry about the price. And the wrong way to do it is to fall down the rabbit hole head first, mouth open, and start typing on Twitter, trying to get clout for that, and starting to like you can do that, but know that you will pay a tuition. And if you experience any FOMO at all, it'll be a tuition that you can't afford, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Can't afford.
FOMO is a powerful drug.
Yes.
Well, listen, we've been going for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
And you haven't even had a drink of water.
I had coffee though.
Oh, get coffee. Okay.
Yeah.